Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alison McConnell alongside me, as we mentioned, at Ruffy. Just feeling a little poorly for the next couple of days, Ali, which obviously on the hop, but we wish him a speedy recovery. He's had a couple of wee days, and that's not bad for 10 years. I mean, I know him, Ali. He just does not like to miss a day on the show.
He's getting to a certain age though, Peter. I think, old age, it does not come alone.
You're sounding like Tom McManus. He's desperate to bump him off so he can get the 5 days.
Either that or he saw the sun shining today and wondered if maybe he could get an extra hour on the golf course.
Let me tell you this, if I see a photograph of him on a golf course, I'll be raging. So Ali, we've got a chance to really kind of have a ding-dong battle. It's a great chance for me to have a real good argument with you because I know you like it. So we will argue the piece on a number of issues, which hopefully you might want to comment on as well. Hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. The good news is it's absolutely free to watch. We've got lots of great one-to-ones coming up and specials. And as ever on this programme, we also give you the chance to win, belter prizes, and it doesn't get any better than this. Have a look at what we're giving away.
PLZ Soccer has teamed up with one of Scotland's leading sports artists, Gio Thompson, to give you the chance to win the signed print of Celtic star Jota. To win with the chance of winning this fantastic prize, all you have to do is answer this simple question. Which country does Jota come from? Leave your answer in the comment section below, and to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck!
Yeah, it's the channel for winning great prizes because we gave away a Rangers shirt from the Europa League season, and we also gave away the Europa League final programme too. I think Ben was well happy, a Rangers fan who was delighted with that. Andrew Taggart is a fan of the show. He's well happy as well because I think his kids right at this moment will probably be opening the Match Attacks prize that we offered last week, and as any kid will know, little boys and little girls love the chance to open the favourite footballers, Ali.
Indeed, fantastic present. It'll keep someone quiet for quite a while and save a few pounds for someone else.
Why do I get the feeling that that's your strategy as a parent to try and keep? It's a bit of the old Mickey Flanagan, isn't it? There you are. There's the iPad. I'll see you in 2 hours. But if you know the answer, then don't forget you can double your chances of winning if you hit the subscribe button, and of course you can if you get the chance. You'll catch the quiz right across our social media, the competition right across our social media, beg your pardon, and you get a chance to enter there as well. But hit the subscribe button and you're in with a right good shout at the end of this week. On the Saturday it's our final chance to enter it, and then on the Monday we'll announce the winner. And next week, I'm looking over and I can see the prize now, but if you remember, we were on our way to Madrid for Real Madrid against Celtic. Well, I brought back a Real Madrid replica Champions League shirt with Modric's number on the back, and we'll give you details of that competition next week. That's going to be an absolute cracker to get your hands on as well. That's an indication of what we've got on offer. As far as some of the news that we've got to talk about, we'll hear from O, who's the new Celtic signing. He's been speaking today at Celtic Park. We'll discuss some of the transfers in and out, Kevin Nisbet being the obvious one with Ryan Porteous, and we might look at the potential incomings at Easter Road. But the big topic at the moment that everybody wants to talk about is quite simply the decision from Aberdeen, which of course Dave Cormack was the man yesterday who had a chat with the board, and this is a statement that he released on Jim Goodwin, which you can make your own mind up about it and give us your thoughts on it. We all recognise that Monday's disastrous result in the Scottish Cup was totally unacceptable. It added insult to injury after such a poor result against Hearts, following what was a strong performance in the semi-final against Rangers at Hampden. The Football Monitoring Board, comprising Stuart Milne, Willie Garner, Stephen Gunn and myself, have now had a full and frank meeting with Jim. It wasn't an easy conversation, but necessary after the overall poor results since the World Cup break. From our wider discussions over the last 2 days, we believe that the senior players and the squad are behind the manager. Combined with our discussions at today's meeting, Jim will be in the dugout on Saturday. However, to be clear, Jim has been left in no doubt that the board and the fans are seeking an immediate response from him and the players. Well, What an interesting statement that was, Ali. What did you take from it?
Yeah, I thought it was odd. I don't think there's another word for it. I think it clearly offers the support to the manager, but so far as this weekend, I think it doesn't really answer any questions about his long-term future at the club. I think if there's an adverse result now on Saturday against Hibs, then you have the same questions that hung in the air on Monday night and Tuesday. I think it felt a bit like a reprimand from the headmaster or something, here's a final warning. And I think it's very, very difficult to escape the sense that he's on borrowed time at Aberdeen, barring...
Borrowed time on a game-by-game basis?
That's what it feels like.
It does feel like that.
I think that's a very difficult situation for anyone to be in. I think the uncertainty around the squad has been evident since he came back from the World Cup break. I think results have been poor, performances have been poor. Barring if you take away that game at Hampden, I thought they performed well against Rangers and all. Were done by a poor decision, really. Anthony Stewart's rashness really cost them. But at the same time, I don't know that they ever really looked like winning that game. Rangers were the more aggressive, more purposeful at that point in the game. So it is ifs and buts. But I think it was just an odd kind of statement. It didn't answer any real questions long term.
Well, I must admit, if you've got a camera inside the Darvel dressing room and Mick Kennedy delivers his Churchillian speech, what sort of speech is Jim Goodwin going to deliver to his players when they take to the field against Hibs at Easter Road? Does he walk in there and go, look guys, we're on a game by game, any chance you could do a turn for me here? Because that's how desperate it sounds.
It definitely does. I mean, I think, as we just spoke, I think if there's any negative response on Saturday, it's a poor result. And incidentally, Lee Johnson's maybe not quite as precarious as what Jim Goodwin is, but he's not in an entirely comfortable situation either. But
we're calling it El Sakiko.
Yeah, I think there's definitely questions to be asked if either manager's on the losing side. I think on Saturday, but I think if that statement's correct, if senior players are still behind the manager, then you have to see it. You have to see a result, you have to see a performance, you have to see a bit of conviction. I think when you look at the goals that Aberdeen have lost, they're dreadful. Some of the defending it's basic defending that they're getting wrong, and it's not isolated times, it's repeated, and it's costing them very dearly. And if you look at that squad, the investment that was made in the squad this summer, but also there's a sense of imbalance in it. I think they do have a decent attacking lineup on their day. I think they've got players that can cause teams problems, but that porous nature at the back makes them vulnerable whenever whoever they're playing against.
I agree with you. The back line is murder. It's as simple as that. I'm going to read out a few of the messages because, quite simply, I'm going to put a little twist on this for you. Thanks to Danny McCrone, who says, I stay in Bournemouth and I love listening to the show every day on my drive home from work. I love the chat and keeping up to date with the news. The banter's not bad either. Well, that's when Tam McManus tries to jimmy in one of his jokes, I'm sure, Danny. But and also, quite a lot of people are saying, can't believe Tam hasn't tried to get an extra shift out of it. Don't worry about it, by the way. He's checking Ruffy's medical records every day as we speak. Now, interesting one here. Ian Miller says they can't afford to pay him off, which is interesting. Mark Greaves says, I'm very surprised Jim Goodwin and Lee Johnson are still in jobs. And I think a lot of people, certainly a lot of Aberdeen fans. Hi, Catherine Kelly from Spain. Matt says they only turn up for Rangers. We've been saying this for years. On the evidence of some of the previous games, Matt, I don't think too many people will argue with you at the moment. But who would come in for them? Have they got the money to replace them with someone that they think can do the job? James Wright says, Goodwin was never the man for the job. Watching those players against Darvel was painful. Of course, the other thing is, as you mentioned there, are they playing for the jersey? Are they playing for the manager? Now, I'll twist it here because from a pundit's point of view, we always say, sometimes chairmen, boards are guilty of sacking managers too quickly, acting rashly, listening to fans. I don't think we can have it both ways, Ali, because apart from anything else, he did a good job at St Mirren. He got his move to Aberdeen. Should we actually maybe in some ways not so much applaud but understand Dave Cormack's thinking here and saying, well, wait a minute, he's trying to be fair to him, albeit that he's treading a fine line game by game. Should we actually respect it and say, okay, maybe you're showing that little bit of, spine and steel and leadership to say, I've got to give him time, because the current, I think the current regime across so many clubs is bull at them.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know that that's exactly what the statement says, though. I think the fact it really brings into question what the performance is like on Saturday maybe just stops short of saying that. Like, it stops short of being an absolute commitment. But I do appreciate what you're saying. I think you look at someone like Mikel Arteta down south and the time that he's had to go and get it right. I think there are very few clubs that can afford that length of time. But the cynic in me would probably say it's less to do with understanding and a bit of human leeway, and it's more to do with finances.
Yeah.
I think that's possibly what it comes down to. But
if it comes down to finances, Ali, it doesn't make a one iota of difference whether he gets sacked now or he gets sacked next week. Still going to have to pay him off. Still going to have to go and try and recruit a manager.
Yeah, and you're also in the middle of a window where you're thinking, you probably you just lost Christian Ramirez last week. You probably wanted to place at least one before the window closes.
And Anthony Stewart.
And, well, what decision do you make there? Do you allow the manager that's in place now to bring in signings before the closure of the window when there's a big question mark hanging over his long-term future? Or do you sit tight? Can you afford not to invest in the squad when things are the way they are? And I have a bit of sympathy for Jim Goodwin. I think up until the World Cup break, I thought there were inconsistencies there. I think when you look at that Tannadice getting thumped 4-0 on the road, and then obviously you had the Tynecastle performance that came in the back of Hampden.
Celtic parking the bus. Rangers 2-1 up with 2 minutes to go. I'll sort the defence out in February. It'll take me a week. There's all sorts of things.
I think that one's come back to haunt him. I think that comment is probably just quite naive. I think he'll probably have learned a fair bit from that. But I think up until the World Cup break, you could see that there were frailties within the squad, very clear frailties within the squad. But home form was negating them almost. Whereas now, I think it looks like a squad that's entirely vulnerable, and I think it's an incredibly soft centre. I also wonder about just a lack of leadership within the squad, about the lack of characters that are there when when the chips are down and you really need people to be willing to take the game with the scruff of the neck and roll their sleeves up. And I think really frustratingly for Jim Goodwin and probably for the Aberdeen support is that you get a performance like you get at Hampden for a long time, and Rangers started that game well, and Aberdeen had the wherewithal to find their feet in it and to come back in. And you think if that's there on certain games, why is it conspicuous by its absence in other games? And you looked at that game on Monday night, and that win, it didn't flatter Darvel. Now I'll qualify that by saying Aberdeen had a fairly clear goal disallowed, but Darvel, in the way they played, they didn't score and sit back and defend for their lives. They might have scored a couple others. Yeah,
well, Jonathan has mentioned the fact that, and I think a lot of people always look towards what happened at Manchester United. He says, remember when Fergie was on a game-by-game basis, many said he was one game from the sack and ended up a huge success. I understand where you're going with that one, Jonathan, but the problem for everyone is they don't have a Bobby Charlton on the board, because at that point Fergie had totally and utterly changed the structure of the club in the background, and Bobby Charlton, I think on record, has spoken up for him and said, you need to give him time, don't sack him. There's a whole batch of young kids that they've unearthed, and he's been really the primary reason why United's structure in the background was looking good. And I think from that point of view, I think a number of people actually looked at what Fergie was doing in the background and maybe were taking into consideration some of the results as well. It was literally a game-by-game basis on the part, though. I mean, it's amazing how Lee Martin's goal transformed Fergie, but I think to compare that with what Jim Goodwin's doing, I don't see signs of that team. That you think to yourself, look good on a regular basis. They, as you've mentioned, have made the continual mistakes. The other aspect of it that I think is the big problem is quite simply, if you're building any good team, and I go back to the great managers, if you build any good team, it's a spine. It's a good goalkeeper. It's 2 centre halves. It's that middle part of the team, where you have that one, leader, middle of the park. You have the striker. And then what you do is you sprinkle it with gold dust. If you read Fergie's books on building the team, if you read Patrick Bartley's book on Sir Matt Busby, the two of them are just replicating what the whole plan is, which is quite simply build the spine, make sure you've got a solid back four, and then everything else grows from there.
And I think Aberdeen's issue is the converse of that just now, that the
Absolutely.
back line is so weak that nothing can stand. It's the foundation of the team that's just, it's incredibly limp, and I think that makes it very difficult to build. I also think when you get to this point that you can almost touch the lack of confidence around them. I think you can sense it as a team. I think other teams sense it in a way. I think you almost scent blood, I think, when you're playing a team in that position and you go for the jugular and you think, how will Aberdeen respond on Saturday if they go a goal behind? If they go a goal behind early in the game, does the roof fall in the way it did at Tynecastle? How do you go about then trying to get back into the game? And I think when the confidence is so low and the belief within the squad is so low, I think it can be very difficult to come out of it.
It's not much higher at Hibs, I have to tell you. And I've watched them a few times over the last month. Here's a good line. Gordon McLean says, Peter, why don't you get Andrew Shiney on to get his take on it? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I think Andrew at the moment is just, he's being counselled on how to stay positive. There was a full year there, Ali, when Andrew was on, and honestly it was 1 week to the next, and that was with Stephen Glass, who was sacked after 11 months in charge. Jim in February was given a 2.5-year deal. So do you want to see a manager sacked? No. The other thing about it from our point of view and our job is quite simply, once you know a manager's on the brink, you then start looking and saying, right, who are the runners and riders who could replace him? And we've already had those favourites along the way. Matt says Martindale is a good shout for the Aberdeen manager. A lot of people have suggested Martindale. And then you start going, you're looking, you're saying to yourself, is it a Paul Lambert? Is it a Neil Lennon? They're out there. Is there a candidate out of left field that maybe Dave Cormack has highlighted that they're just waiting and biding their time and making the phone calls now? Because there's no doubt about it, everyone and their granny knows managers get tapped up.
And I think that's always a suspicion. I think in situations like this, you think, is it just a buying of time? Is it just a stay of execution for everyone, that you then put the feelers out, see who's available, see who might be interested, and if a decision is made, then you have someone essentially waiting to come in and take it over without any hanging around. But I think it's a very difficult situation for Jim himself to work under just now. I think it's very difficult when you know you're standing on the ledge, essentially.
I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I think the pressure's probably absolute. I think on Monday, I think you could see his body language standing on the touchline, and you know exactly what's going through his mind. You get the chairman sitting just behind him in the dugout, and I thought Aberdeen were so poor too. I thought that the lack of creativity, the real lack of fight within the team would have been galling for him to watch.
Well, we had Craig Truesdale on here on the show, and he did mention that they felt as if they were there for the taking, and that's a team in the 6th tier of Scottish football. Martin Torrance says, I can't wait for your predictions solely on the Hibs Aberdeen game. I have to say, I mean, it's a tough call because Aberdeen on the road have been absolutely miserable, so I don't expect Aberdeen to win. The other problem I have with it all is I've watched Hibs, and Hibs are no great shakes either, and they're just on the verge of selling their two best players, or certainly two of their half-decent players, because the best player on their side is the 37-year-old, and I'm sure I'm going to take flack for it, but he is, by a country mile, the best player at Hibs at the moment. But I do take on board what Tam McManus was saying, which is quite simply. If there are talented players in the youths that have been playing well in under-19s, then by all means give them a chance. Depending on their budget.
The best team in the country at youth level. Fantastic team, a team that's been widely spoken about.
Throw a couple of them in, and then see what you're going to do with £450,000 for Ryan Porteous, and then over $2 million for Nisbet. I just hope he's got a list of people that he wants to get in quickly to buy. And remember, they haven't got a director of football yet.
Yeah, it's a similar question, isn't it? It's, do you trust the manager to spend that money in the current window when you know that there's real uncertainty over his position? I think the problems at Hibs probably go deeper than the current manager, as the recent list of managers would tell you. I think when you're churning over managers as quickly as Hibs have been, I think problems are probably more deep-rooted than just who's in charge of the playing side. However, I think losing Nisbet and losing Ryan Porteous is huge for Hibs. I think they're a team that I think could conceivably find themselves slipping into the bottom half of the table this season.
Yeah, absolutely, I think so. And remember, by the way, there's a couple of suggestions that I would think maybe Hibs fans are hoping something comes of them for the back line if Porteous doesn't complete his move to Watford for $450,000. But what about up front? Well, we thought we'd have a wee look at potentially 5 players that are available that might be on the radar of Hibs should Nisbet's deal be all signed, sealed and delivered today.
With Kevin Nisbet bound for Millwall, BOZ Soccer looks at 5 players that Hibs could look to sign in the closing days of this January window and the summer to replace the forward's vital goals. Bruce Anderson. An agile forward with top-flight experience, Anderson has a lot of similar qualities to the departing Nisbet. Coming through the ranks at Aberdeen, he struggled for game time after bursting onto the scene as a 19-year-old, scoring the last-minute equaliser against Rangers in Steven Gerrard's first game as a manager. In his first full season at the Tony Macaroni, he had a strike rate of a goal every 2.6 games. Still 6 months shy of turning 25, Anderson would represent a gamble, but he certainly has time on his side to show he can make the step up again. Dipo Akinyemi. Akinyemi is undoubtedly one of the stars of the Scottish Championship this season, scoring 15 times in 21 games for Ayr United. The Honest Men have a stellar reputation of producing Premiership strikers, with both Nisbet and Hearts counterpart Lawrence Shanklin honing their craft in Ayrshire before making the step up divisions. At 25, Akinyemi has a checkered career, so far turning out for no less than 12 teams. He has adapted well to life in Scotland, and it may be a risk worth taking for the frontmen before another side inevitably beat them to the punch. Zach Robinson, another player who has lit up the Championship. Robinson has only recently returned to parent club Wimbledon after a fruitful spell at Dundee, where he scored 7 goals in 16 games for Gary Bowes' side. Whilst they will have to wait until the summer to snap him up, at just 20 years old, Robinson could be the perfect long-term target as Hibs look to rebuild their front line. Ryan Hardy, a name that is already familiar within Scottish football. Hardy came through the ranks at Rangers before spells at Raith Rovers, St Mirren and Livingston. With 16 goals in his first full season in Devon, he was the club's top goal scorer and is aiming for similar this campaign. Still only 25, a move back north could provide a springboard higher up the English ladder, or potentially into the thoughts of Steve Clarke in the Scotland national team's eternal search for goals. Josh O'Connor. With a second name already synonymous with scoring goals in Leith, Josh O'Connor will be eager to follow in his father's footsteps and lead the line for Lee Johnson's men. O'Connor has been a standout as he progressed through the ranks and made his professional debut off the bench against Aberdeen in March of 2022. He would not only offer a budget option for the Premiership side, but he may also galvanise the fans to get behind a youth project and capture the spirit of the early 2000s, where the green half of Edinburgh was built on solid foundations of academy graduates.
What about that belter photograph of Tam McManus there?
I feel so old.
I was just about to say to you feel old. I was a young reporter then. Just look, the picture is unbelievable. McManus, Stephen Dobie, Gary O'Connor, Derek Riordan, Scott Brown. So many players. It's difficult to actually get 4 or 5, which I think we obviously emphasise from time to time. When you get a batch of kids coming through, what happens now is the English clubs just take a chance and say, there's $1 million, there's $500,000, we'll just take them and put them in our academy or put them in our reserves, and you don't get the chance to see them coming through. That's something that's really kind of a gathered pace at the moment. And then after that, you're saying to yourself, well, you know, what do you do with going to get players from other clubs? I mean, right now, Stephen Welsh must be contemplating his future at Celtic because he's not going to get a kick. And then over and above that, you've got, you know, the talk of Stuart Finlay. But is there anyone else that you could prize away from a club that would shore up that defence for Hibs as well?
Yeah, I think that's a big question mark. But I also think that youth team has been spoken of so highly in how they've performed.
Yeah.
I think you would want to try and introduce them. And I know there's always an argument about the difficulties of bringing young players into a team that's struggling and toiling. But for the likes of Josh O'Connor, if Nesbitt's away, why not throw him in, see what he can do, see if he can handle it. I think fans love a homegrown player. They love someone coming through from the academy. Yeah. And I think ultimately you don't know if they're first team ready until you put them in there. How do you see their decision making and
Tam says you should give McCurdy a run.
I've got mixed views on McCurdy. I've seen him a few times. He's not a young player.
No. I'm getting mixed views in his hairstyle. It's wild.
Different wild haircut every time you see him. I think,
Phil Marston for that. I mean, he did show a little bit of a flash of, you know, energy the other day there against Hearts, but you know, by that time the horse was bolted.
The game was gone. I think his hand will be forced just now. I think with Nesbitt away, I suppose he's just back from injury. I think he'll probably get more game time in the next couple of weeks, depending on what happens in the transfer window. He might come back in, but he's quite lightweight, McCurdy. He's quite he's slight. Whether or not that's what Hibs need just now, but they need something. I think you definitely need to find something to go and inspire a bit of fight. I think what saved clubs like Hibs and Aberdeen just now is the fact that out with Celtic and Rangers, few teams have been able to piece together consistent runs. Had teams been more part of Hearts since the European campaigns finished, then obviously Hearts have got a bit of momentum. But I think had other teams around them been more consistent, I think they might have been in far more trouble than what they are just now.
Yeah.
Although I still think for the likes of for Aberdeen and for Hibs, it should be embarrassing that you have Livingston where they are in the league, given the budget. I think Livingston will probably get maybe the lowest budget in the whole league.
I think in the end, any chairman or owner is using Livingston as, you know, almost like the baseball bat to bat the manager over the head with, because it's not good when you see what he's doing on a small budget. But fair play to David Martindale, he's got something. It's whether another club's willing to take a chance on him. What do you think? Is it a Martindale? Is it a Neil Lennon? I have to say, you know, Neil Lennon, I don't think will be too long before he's back on these shores, and he's hanging about there knowing that he could get I think he knows that he's going to get offered a good job in Scotland. You know, for me, a lot of Hibs fans liked Lennon there because he had that attitude of, listen, not interested in everybody celebrating a draw. He wanted to win games. He was absolutely ferocious at times, brilliant in a press conference, as you well know. But I think he changed the mindset, and the team actually, you know, played some really good football the way he'd set the whole team up. So, and by the way, regardless of people who don't like Neil Lennon, you don't become a bad coach overnight. You know, the amount of people that were singing his praises, you know, for beating Lazio home and away, and then all of a sudden in the season from hell, which wasn't just his fault, you know, suddenly he becomes a dud manager again. I just don't buy into it.
No, I don't either, and I'm sure I think he would bite your hand off for a job like Aberdeen, or even, dare we say it, going back to Hibs. I'm not sure if that would ever be a possibility.
Well, it is a possibility, because the reason why I left, you know, can I say Leanne Dempster is no longer there? So I think he would absolutely bite your hand off to get back in, to get back into the daily beat of coaching. I think it's what he knows, it's what he enjoys, and I think he does have something to offer. I think he's a colourful character. I think he comes in, I think he can lift a dressing room. I think he's a coach who can get the best out of his players. I think you can sometimes see that he gets more than the sum of his parts at times. And I know that COVID season was just spiralled out of control for Celtic. It got away from them and never come back from the turn of the year, from the ill-fated Dubai trip
all the way down. It just felt as though it was unravelling at a furious pace. But I would agree with you. I don't think you become a bad coach on the back of one poor season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Odd season, a weird season for everyone.
Absolutely. I'd love to write a book on it. But the other thing about it's amazing when you mention Neil Lennon's name. It really is Marmite, because as soon as you mention it, it just absolutely fills that many people's. I wouldn't read some of the things out, but Neil Lennon, like him or loathe him, I think he's got something to offer as a manager. And, whether you agree with that or not, only time will tell. He will be back in some capacity. I think somebody's going to take a bite at him and say, right, we want what you've got. See if you can do it for our club. Whether it's a Hibs or an Aberdeen, only time will tell. But Lee Johnson's still in his job. Jim Goodwin's still in his job, and as we go week by week with these things now, the last thing any of the fans want to see is the club slipping down into that bottom six, and then it really does get tight and nervy. Just before we get on to some of the other movers and shakers as far as the transfer window is concerned, this is a belter of a question, Ali. It's got a kind of a double edge to it for the quiz question. The answer at the end of the programme. I know you've got your worried face on, don't worry about it. Here's the quiz question. Which two sides contested the 1987 Scottish Cup final? And the reason why it's a double-barrelled one is because we couldn't get it all on the graphic. And the second part of it is, why was that the last cup final to be so unique to Scotland? So...
I think I know the answer.
Yeah, you think so?
I think so.
Okay, well that's good. You just hold on to that, and if you think you know the answer, then fire it out on the feed here. Thanks to so many of you who are joining in a bit of fun in the quiz. And there's lots of people actually taking part in our competition for the Jota canvas. We've given away a Rangers strip and a Europa League programme, match attacks, football cards. Next week it's Luka Modric and a replica Real Madrid Champions League shirt, which I think someone will absolutely love. We'll be giving away lots more, and you double your chances of winning if indeed you hit the subscribe button. And there's lots of one-to-ones coming up that I think you really will enjoy on the programme, and there's lots of unique video content that we are churning out, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And not only on the YouTube channel, but we've got it right across our website, and if you download the PLZ Soccer app, you'll get it all at your fingertips, including breaking football stories. So if any player moves or you want comment, our own Ali writes a column on a Monday, and then after that she doesn't see anybody till the Thursday, when she hopes that they've forgotten all about it and they're not angry with her.
Twitter back on.
Yeah, so well, you've had a fair few who've caned you. I must admit, I can't remember. Were you on the BBC at the weekend on or was it somewhere? Were you on somewhere or was it something that you'd written that apps? I'm not going to mention it because
I think there was a case of mistaken identity.
Was that
there
what
are
it
two
was?
Alisons who work in Scottish sports journalism.
Yes.
And I think there was a case of mistaken identity. I think someone took some abuse that was meant for me.
For you, yes, absolutely. Yeah, but I did see someone actually, having a go at you on here as well, and I thought, I wonder if Alison's written something in a piece that might have provoked a little bit of consternation. Let's not dwell on it, because we've had a couple of weeks from hell on this programme. But nevertheless, you'll always get opinion, which is one of the reasons why all those years ago I decided to try and stump up enough cash to get Ali to come and join the team, which was an absolute delight. You'll get opinion, you'll get all our pundits on, and of course we've re-signed Richard Foster. Should have seen his gear on Tuesday, absolute mile out, by the way. He had a photograph of a dog on his sweatshirt. He needs to have a long hard look at himself. Another man that a lot of people are having a long hard look at is Oh Hyun-gyu. I'm sure there's a better pronunciation somewhere until I get to speak to the man and ask him how you pronounce it. He's checked in there at Celtic. He's on a 5-year deal, Ali. This is interesting, the way they're going about their business now. And as somebody said to me earlier, you don't sign somebody on a 5-year deal if you're thinking about leaving as a manager.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, to be fair, I think it's probably more a club decision, but I would absolutely take the point that it's very much a long-term project. It lends an impression of stability and having a vision for what's coming ahead, and just financially protecting the assets that you do have. I think it's an interesting one. I think obviously there's been a lot of chat about who else is still to go out the door at Celtic, so I think they needed at least one more coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe one more before the window closes now.
Yeah, well, we sent our reporter Kerry Pollock out there to Celtic Park to find out what all the fuss was about.
Celtic have now announced their 4th January window signing, South Korean striker Hyung-oh. It's been reported that Ange Postecoglou has had his eye on the striker for quite some time now, and as we know, he likes to play with a fast attacking style of football here in Scotland, and that's something that Oh feels he'll fit into with no problems at all.
I know that Celtic is a very proactive team, and I think I'm a player who's very strong in the goal box, penalty box, and I think I can take a good position when there's a chance.
Oh was joined by a translator today, but he answered one question that all Celtic fans will be dying to know the answer to just fine.
Celtic.
Are you ready to start?
그래서 이번 주에 당장 뛸 준비가 혹시
Yeah, no problem.
You understood that.
Yeah, he speaks little.
Yeah, there he is. He's happy, and he becomes yet another player from the Far East that Celtic are exploring that market, exploiting it, and looking and seeing if they're going to get results out of it. I'm curious to see what type of player he becomes. You know, is he going to be similar to Kyogo? Is he going to be more aggressive? Will he offer them that kind of real threat from a set piece? I'm not sure. You know, the proof is in the pudding when you see them. I never like to look at showreels, you know, and listen to anybody's PR on it, because Celtic and Rangers fans will tell you down through the years, everybody's been the next Henrik Larsson and the next Brian Laudrup.
No, without doubt. What you would have to say though is that bringing in a manager like Ange Postecoglou, who obviously had working knowledge of those markets and leagues, has been, you know, it's largely been very successful for Celtic when you look at the players who have arrived. I think you know, the impact that Maeda, Kyogo, Rio Hatate have had, I think, has been unquestionable, and I think it'll be interesting to see just how he slots in, how long he might need to get up to speed. Hatate came in and walked straight into that team at the end of January last year. If you remember, he was instrumental in that February dismantling of Rangers, a midweek game. So it'll be interesting to see if they're first team ready, if they're able to slot straight into the way he wants the team to play, to how they're set up. But yeah, I think Celtic have clearly had a fairly decent transfer window. I think they've done a bit of business with Alistair Johnson right at the start of the window, and then this one has rumbled in the background for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and of course, I think Gallant has it down to a T. He says best to judge a player when they actively play. I think you're absolutely right. Once you actually see someone and get the sense of whether they can actually go in and hit the ground running, and this is the big pressure, I think, for the likes of Celtic and Rangers. I'm not in any way diminishing the need for that anywhere else, Ali, but on the way the league's looking at the moment with Celtic 9 points clear, because they've got such a strong squad, Ange Postecoglou can give them that 3 or 4 weeks. I think what Michael Beale's trying to do is trying to get everything he can out of that Rangers side, while hoping, you know, in comes 2 or 3 players who will be starters rather than squad players.
There's a different pressure at both clubs just now. I think Rangers play every game, or every league game certainly, knowing that they can ill afford any slip. I think that lends itself a particular kind of weight in every game, and you sense it if you're at a game and you're approaching the hour mark or so and it's still tied, then you can sense the angst in the crowd because of the ramifications of dropping points at any stage, given the disparity between the two teams in the league. Whereas at Celtic, I think there's just, you can afford that bit of breathing space. And I think that does make a difference when you're trying to introduce new players. I think you're absolutely right. I think Michael Beale is looking at maybe particular positions where he knows that it has to be stronger, he has to be better. I think maybe a bit of creativity in there too.
I like Cantwell. I mean, I think that'll be I hope he's going to be a good signing, because, You know, I've mentioned in the last couple of days that I did like what he was doing. He looked a really good player at Norwich.
He really did. At one point, he was being talked about in quite significant circles. I think, you know, when he was a wee bit younger, that I think he was regarded as one of the real up and coming players there. I think there's no doubt of his pedigree. It's just whether or not he fits in to that kind of system, obviously, that Michael Beale wants to play. But I would agree with you. I think it's a very good signing.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I mean, the Nicholas Raskin one is a signing that obviously Rangers were hoping that would gather a bit of pace. As ever with these things, you think you've got someone and then somebody can come in from left field and maybe derail their hopes. But we're now looking and we're saying to ourselves, okay, you're getting the 26th of January, you're getting close to the end of the window, you want a bit of business done, while obviously trying to get the best out of what you've got and hope some of the injured players come back as well, because we have heard towards the end of the month, you know, that Suter and Hadji would be training, so there's hope there. Hellander's a different kettle of fish, Tom Lawrence is a blow, and you're just saying to yourself, okay, if you can get the nucleus of a good side back together and that one or two signings, then they want to make a go of it. I don't think they're going to win the league. They certainly want to make a go of it in the cup.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think obviously you would want to still come away with something to show for the season, and I think the both cups represent that just now, that opportunity to win some silverware. I would agree with you in terms of the league. I think there's no evidence to suggest that Celtic will ship the points required and that there'll be any catch up. I think you would fully anticipate that Celtic go on and retain the title, but I think what you do want to see is a continuation of results that have come since Michael Beale came in, and you want to see the foundation set for next season. If you can introduce a couple of players now that you know you can bed in over the next couple of months, and that come the summer they're ready to kick on, and you also have a platform there for how you're playing, a clear identity about how the team plays, and you're set up and ready to go and challenge for the title. Certainly I think you'll want something to show for the season to come, but what you would say just now is I think there's probably an edge about Rangers, there's a confidence about Rangers simply because of where they were and where they are now. I think there's still question marks over performances. I think at times in games it can be very flat. I think they've maybe been fortunate to prevail in certain instances, but when you look at it in black and white in terms of the results, I think it's been very good for bringing a bit of stability to the club, and then you go and try and build on that now.
Yeah, here's the Scottish Premiership fixtures for the weekend. We've got lots to look forward to, some cracking games. Hibs against Aberdeen. I think just everybody's going to be watching that, and probably for all the wrong reasons, because if Jim Goodwin pulls out a result, everybody goes, great, they've all fired back for him. If Hibs were to lose it, suddenly people are saying, well, wait a minute, how much time has Lee Johnson got? So it really is a cracker set up for Saturday. Rangers against St Johnstone. It was tight in the Cup. Rangers edged it. Will it be any different at Ibrox? Ross County against Kilmarnock. Ross County at the moment can't buy a win, and really this one could be interesting because Kilmarnock have already announced, Derek McInnes has said, no more signings coming in at Rugby Park. St Mirren against Motherwell, a chance this time for that game to get the go-ahead, and Stephen Robinson to welcome his old side to Paisley. Livingston against Hearts, it's fourth against third. And David Martindale continuing to work his magic. Will he actually just get a little bit closer to Hearts in that third position? And then Dundee United against Celtic. It's great. I love the fact that when we all get together to interview managers, the last thing you want to hear is, hi Liam, how are you going to bounce back? How is Dundee United going to bounce back from that 9-0 gubbing from Celtic? Is it preying on the players' minds? And of course, we all steamed in there. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, well, I feel we've made progress. I think results and performances will tell you that. That was obviously a low point for everybody connected with the club, players, staff, but most importantly probably the supporters. So listen, we're aware of that. It's not something that I'm going to dwell on. It's not something I'm going to talk to the players about.
Yeah, I don't think anybody. I mean, it wasn't him that was in charge. I don't think anybody needs to dwell on it. United are in they're not in any different a position, Ali. I mean, despite getting a couple of confidence-boosting performances, they're still down there. They're not out of it.
Very firmly still down there. There's a number of teams, I think, just all grappling with that lower case. I think I just don't know that they'll get out of it out the bit.
I think they're the biggest underperformers because Killie, coming up from the Championship, you're thinking, okay, can you stay in the division? Ross County have been the team that annually comes out with something to escape, which is fine. Motherwell, I didn't expect them to be there, but they find themselves in it. And then you have a situation where Dundee United's wage bill and the players they've signed, where they are, and when you consider Dundee United's wage bill to Livingston, it's not good.
Absolutely. St Johnstone too, I think you could probably classify in there as well. I think it'll be a tough afternoon for Dundee United against Celtic. I think they'll try and make it as difficult as possible for them. I think they'll try and hold them off for as long as possible, but I think you know what you expect. I think everyone knows what you get from Celtic just now. They're fairly relentless. They probe for openings. They don't give you a minute on the ball. I think they've had a free week this week. I think the players had a couple of days off to go and recharge the batteries, take a breather, get back into it. I think it has the potential to be another long afternoon for Dundee United, unless they buck expectation and there's a surprise, which we saw earlier this season with St Mirren when they hosted Celtic. But I think you'd strongly anticipate that it could be a fairly arduous afternoon for them.
Yeah, and I think with that in mind, people are looking and saying, okay, the Old Firm games could become crucial as Rangers' best hopes of starting to peg back points, because you can't see Celtic dropping points against the rest of them when they've signed players that are allowed to bed in, and that he's switching them constantly. I mean, at the start of the season, you'd be looking and thinking, Jota's a stonewall certainty to start. He's not getting a starting place.
Yeah, I think he has that luxury of being able to change personnel around. I think also Alistair Johnson has slotted in seamlessly with Juranovic going out. I think he's come in. He was obviously very fit and obviously in confidence himself after coming out of the World Cup. He did a decent showing with Canada, but I think he looks very much at home in that side. I think Celtic look very fluent. They don't look as though they're going to ship any points. Arguably, I think their poorest performance of the season might have been at Ibrox, or one of the poorest performances of the season might have been at Ibrox, and they came away with it still with a point. I think if Rangers had hung on and came out of that with all 3 points, I think there might have been a few more nerves, a few more questions asked of Celtic. But I think retaining the lead and retaining the gap at that stage was fairly critical. And I don't see much evidence just now that they'll falter.
Yeah. Okay. As far as the weekend's concerned, then, I mean, obviously, you know what you're like in the predictor at the moment. It's kind of a mid-table to bottom mediocrity for you. I'm not quite sure if you're St Johnstone or you've got the potential to be Livingston, Ali. You're just banking on the fact that the old campaigner has given up the ghost in Hugh McDonald. Is that fair? Are you, Ali? Because
I'm hoping so. That's what we have to hope that Hugh's given up the ghost to save some of us, sacrificing himself.
Yeah.
It's been a poor predictor this season for me so far, but just there's time yet.
Yeah, absolutely. There's time to finish third. So
Third's
with
fine.
that, third's fine because it means you don't have to pay for any food. Give me the answer then to Hibs against Aberdeen, Ali. It's a belter, isn't it?
I honestly don't know. I wonder if the players will conjure up a performance for Jim Goodwin that is huge, that could keep him in a job. But again, when you talk about evidence, is there anything there that would compel you to think that Aberdeen can go on the road and get a result at Easter Road? And I don't see it. I don't see the performances of late suggesting they're capable of it.
So if he's not capable of it, does he get sacked at the end of it?
I think if they come away with a draw, it might prolong it. It might just, it's a point, it would still be a positive result. I think there cannot be another Tynecastle. You can't go and come out of it on the end of a hiding.
Yeah.
I think he'll want to win it. I think he'll go to try and win it. I just don't know that this Aberdeen team are strong enough mentally to come through.
I'm having a wee look there to see if Ruffy... Hello, Ruffy, are you behind her? Are you what? Honestly, are you padding? Just give me the answer.
I'm going to go for a draw, I think.
A draw?
I just can't. I think there's just so...
Yeah.
I think Aberdeen needs something. I think they desperately need something. I cannot see them winning the game.
No. Survives with a draw.
I think he does survive. Limps on.
Okay, interestingly enough.
And you?
I'm going to go for Hibs with the worst game of all time. Two teams who have absolutely been ranked rotten when you consider that Livingston are suddenly in a situation where they can close the gap on Hearts if they win at home against them. I mean, it defies logic that the two clubs, and they're great clubs, and also I think Hibs fans must be wondering what is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 days. They've announced a director of football with nothing happening, and now they're going to look to sell two of their best players, and it's going to be harem scarum right to the wire on this. If that window closes without anything half decent coming in, you're going to suffer the wrath of the fans, because I'll tell you right now, not many Hibs fans I know think, oh, this is fantastic, this hospitality in the background, isn't it great? You get burgers with chips and it's all great, and we can sit in a lovely little lounge that's just been decorated with that real 1950s American feel, and Elvis is playing in the background. They want players on the pitch, so I think Ron's about to find out the wrath of Hibs fans if they've not got any half decent signings in.
I think especially when you've allowed your two best players, potentially your two best players, to walk out the door.
Can you imagine Aberdeen go there and win? Can you imagine really on form at the moment, one of the worst teams in the league going to Easter Road and winning?
I think if either team wins on Saturday, I think there are real consequences for the opposition manager.
Yeah, and Louis Johnson under pressure?
I think so. I think he's got to be.
Yeah. Okay, what about Rangers against St Johnstone? I can only see a comfortable win for Rangers at Ibrox.
I would agree. I think it'll be fairly straightforward.
You don't need to give me the score, by the way, because obviously we don't want to copy each other.
I think St Johnstone have struggled hugely in the last couple of months. I would expect it to be a comfortable afternoon for Rangers.
Yeah, and up at Dingwall, I just can't believe that this one here is Malky has to do something. I haven't even seen, I've been predicting that Roy McGregor will back him with players, but I haven't even seen anything at Dingwall that suggests there's an influx of 3 or 4 players to try and get them out of this mess.
I've seen them a few times this season. I think they have been a bit unlucky in games that I've seen, games that they've come away having dropped points that you think they should have taken something, but it doesn't excuse the league position, and it certainly doesn't detract from just how dangerous and precarious a position that they are in now. I think they know they need to get something. Kilmarnock too, I think, have toiled. They've never had never been able to build any real momentum this season yet at all. Not been able to get themselves properly out the bit.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go a draw there.
I'm not sure. I might possibly a home win.
A home win, okay. St Mirren against Motherwell. I think St Mirren will win it, but I think there's still problems there for Motherwell despite the Scottish Cup win. Yeah,
I agree. I think St Mirren will win that one. I think they've had a decent return. I know it faltered a wee bit of late, but they've had a decent campaign overall so far, and I think I think they'll have the beating of Motherwell. Yeah,
on the Sunday, Livingston against Hearts is the toughest one to call. I'm going to say Hearts are going to win it 2-1.
Yeah, I think Hearts will sneak it, but I think it will be tough. I think that pitch and everything round about it, the way Livingston play. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We need a bit of time to think about that one.
Okay, then. We'll wait till everybody else is in, and then ask your son Joe if he can come up with a scoreline.
He's been sacked. He's had a really poor week
He
actually resigned before he was sacked.
What an honourable thing to do. There'll be no resigning in managers in the Premiership, let me tell you. Dundee United against Celtic, it won't be 8, it won't be 9. But it'll be a fair few, I think.
I think it'll be comfortable.
Okay. Ali, just before we go, of course, we'll give you the quiz answer, and hopefully you've got that for us. But there is a small matter of an FA Cup match, 4th round at the Emirates, and it's the manager with the protege that he had for so long. It's Arteta against Guardiola, and this one is a belter because I think a lot of people are looking at exactly what's going to happen with this one. Is it a precursor to what could happen later in the season? Can Arsenal finally end that long wait since 2004 to win the title? It's Pep and Mikel Arteta.
I remember that when we were together here, when we scored a lot of goals with our opponents, always he jump and celebrate, except one team. In one team, every time I scored a goal, I jump, come back, he was sitting there. It was Arsenal.
I always hoped that was going to be the case one day, and it's happening this season. Obviously, that's not going to change any friendship, the moments that we have, how important he is in my life, how important he is in my profession. But yeah, we are both willing to win and defend our clubs in the best possible way.
What a great game that's going to be. I do like a little touch of English football into the programme, and that's good. I mean, it's just, thankfully, I'm not going out. I'm going to sit and watch that.
Yeah, it's a night for the couch and a glass of wine, I think.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, could you differentiate what nights are not for the couch and a glass of wine with you? Because every time I chat to you, you're like, oof, I've had a stressful day, you know, and my wife's taking a leaf out of your book. I'm thinking, is the day got a Y in it? Okay, who are you going for?
Our weekends are busy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll take that point. Man City or Arsenal?
I'm going to go for Arsenal.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to go them from a solitary goal. Okay, here's the big quiz question. Can you come up with the answer? First of all, 2 teams involved in the 87 Cup final.
Did United and St Mirren?
Yes, and what was so unique about that final?
Was it maybe the last final with an all-Scottish cast of all Scottish players?
Yes, it was. The match officials, the players and the managers, everyone was Scottish. So it's such a unique final. 1987.
Ian Ferguson scored.
Okay, don't milk it now. The last thing we like.
Bonus point.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'll see it now. Alice is just a smart arse. It'll come up eventually. The last thing we hate is a show off on the show. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was Ian Ferguson, and look at him. He went on to. I think Ian Ferguson is one of those rare Rangers players. McCoist's another one. Richard Gough. I think he won 9, possibly 10 medals, 10 Premier League medals. I might be wrong, but he's definitely got 9, Ian Ferguson. I know McCoist and Richard Gough. Gough had 9 with Rangers and he won 1 with Dundee United. 10 Premiership medals, no mean feat, but Ian Ferguson was a wonderful player. Here's the competition, a chance for you to win another good player in Jota on the canvas, signed by him as well.
PLZ Soccer has teamed up with one of Scotland's leading sports artists, Gio Thompson, to give you the chance to win the signed print of Celtic star Jota. To win with the chance of winning this fantastic prize, all you have to do is answer this simple question. Which country does Jota come from? Leave your answer in the comment section below, and to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck.
Yeah, well done to Kerry there, and well done to Patrick, our reporter, giving us that little feature on the possible transfer targets of Hibernian. Will they be able to get someone in quickly before the end of the transfer window? Thanks to Ali for joining us today. If you want to join the football family, it's absolutely free to watch, and of course, as we say, uncensored, unbiased, unmatched, 6 days a week now, because Tam McManus and myself bring you the results service on a Saturday, 4 o'clock till 6, with our reporters out at the games delivering pre-match, half-time and full-time reports across all our social media channels as well. So well worth clicking in that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and if you download the app, you'll get all the breaking football stories from Ali and myself, Peter Martin. Have a great night.